in the shadowy depths of the Alaskan wilderness whispers echo of a colossal, hidden structure, a mysterious black pyramid cloaked in secrecy by the US government.
When I was putting the maps out, there was this one area that was whited out, which was inscribed with, "This area not surveyed to date." With my counterintelligence background, I knew they're hiding something.
All begins with former counterintelligence officer Doug Muchler, a man trained in the art of espionage, who never imagined that he would stumble upon what some now call the Alaska Black Pyramid. In September of 1989, Doug was stationed at Fort Richardson on the outskirts of Anchorage, Alaska, a location that would soon become the nexus of a series of baffling events. His mission was routine, or so it seemed, until one day, while orienting himself with the area using an old map, Doug noticed something odd. A large, white, featureless section appeared in the mountains, where terrain should have been visible. The blank spot felt deliberate, like a well-hidden secret. His instincts, honed from years in counterintelligence, told him something was being concealed. Years passed, and the mystery of the white spot on the map faded from Doug's mind, overshadowed by the pressing duties of his post. But in 1992, everything changed. The ground trembled as China detonated its largest underground nuclear bomb, a blast so powerful it sent shockwaves across the globe, all the way to Alaska. The tremors were detected by earthquake monitoring equipment, but what the seismic readings revealed was far more eerie. A strange, gigantic object buried deep underground, unmistakably pyramid-shaped. Local TV news ran a short segment, describing the object as a pyramid larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza, an astonishing claim. What startled Doug even more was that this pyramid was located exactly where the white blank on his old map had been. The next day, Doug tuned in for more information, but the report had vanished without a trace. Puzzled, he drove to the station, hoping to retrieve a copy. But when he inquired, the station manager insisted no such broadcast had aired. A junior reporter, pale and trembling, pulled him aside, whispering that two men had come in, confiscated the tapes, and left without explanation. It was clear to Doug that the story had been buried, locked away in the shadows where prying eyes could no longer see. Time marched on, yet Doug couldn't shake the feeling that he had stumbled upon something monumental, something that someone, somewhere, was desperate to keep hidden. In 1993, still haunted by the mystery, Doug took a trip to Fort Meade in Maryland, home to vast archives of military records. Maybe, just maybe, there was something there that could confirm his suspicions. The archive manager led him to a drawer filled with documents labeled Alaska. Doug felt his pulse quicken as he pulled out a file, his fingers trembling slightly as he prepared to open it. But before he could even glance at its contents, two men in dark suits appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. Their words were curt and cold. "You're not authorized to have that." They snatched the folder from his hands, and Doug realized in that moment that his journey into this chilling mystery had hit a dead end. However, a turning point appeared in 2012. Nearly 2 decades after the eerie events in Alaska, Doug sought help from Emmy-winning documentarian and investigative journalist Linda Moulton Howe. Known for her work on UFOs and government conspiracies, Linda was intrigued by Doug's story. She began her own investigation, contacting experts and digging through obscure records in the hopes of uncovering something, anything that might validate Doug's claims. At first, her efforts yielded little, until an anonymous caller from the East Coast contacted her with a cryptic message. "There is a massive pyramid underground in Alaska, so ancient that no one knows its origin. We call it the Dark Pyramid." This shadowy figure's description mirrored what Doug had suspected for years. For the first time, the pieces were starting to fall into place. But the more Linda and Doug uncovered, the deeper the mystery seemed to go. This pyramid, rumored to be buried 2 miles beneath the Alaskan landscape, was not just a relic of the past. It was something far more sinister. Some whispered that it had been built by an ancient, advanced civilization, one that possessed technology far beyond our own. Others claimed it was extraterrestrial in origin, its geometric perfection and colossal size defying any known human engineering capabilities. Theories spun out of control, from the plausible to the terrifying. Local legends added a spine-chilling layer to the story. Indigenous tribes had long passed down tales of an ancient, forbidden structure buried deep within the earth, an object imbued with dark supernatural powers. Some claimed that the pyramid was a portal, a gateway to another realm or dimension. Others warned of a curse, a malevolent force that would awaken if the pyramid was disturbed, wreaking havoc on anyone foolish enough to pry into its secrets. Even more unsettling are the whispers of what the pyramid might be capable of. Some researchers and conspiracy theorists suggest that the Alaska Black Pyramid could harness energy in ways we can't begin to comprehend. Theories about pyramids as energy conductors are not new. Many believe that ancient structures like the pyramids of Egypt were built not just as tombs, but as giant machines designed to manipulate electromagnetic fields. Could the Alaska Pyramid be doing the same? Could it be tapping into the Earth's natural energy grid, channeling and focusing electromagnetic energy in ways that we can't even imagine? Some even speculate that the pyramid could be influencing seismic activity or manipulating the weather, using its hidden power to shape the world around it. But the most unnerving aspect of this story is not the pyramid itself, but the silence surrounding it. Over the years, many have tried to uncover the truth about the Alaska Black Pyramid. But each time, their efforts are met with resistance, as if an invisible hand is quietly erasing any trace of its existence. Could it be that the government, or perhaps something even more powerful, is hiding the pyramid's true purpose? Is it a relic of an ancient civilization, a piece of alien technology, or something far more dangerous than we can comprehend? Whatever the truth may be, it seems that those who get too close to it are quickly silenced. What's notable? The Alaska Triangle, much like the enigmatic Black Pyramid, has ignited intense speculation and a myriad of conspiracy theories. The region, first named in 1972, spans from Anchorage in south-central Alaska to Juneau in the southeast panhandle, and reaches all the way to Utqiagvik on Alaska's northern coast. This vast remote area is notorious not only for its wild, rugged beauty, but also for the mysterious disappearances that have occurred within its bounds. Since 1988, over 16,000 people have vanished from this area without a trace. Even more disturbing is that, per year, about 4 people go missing for every 1,000 residents of Alaska, a rate that's twice the national average. The Alaska Triangle has earned a reputation for swallowing up planes, boats, and even entire villages. These disappearances have remained unsolved, adding to the region's eerie reputation. The most unsettling part is that despite exhaustive search efforts, wreckage or human remains are rarely found. Planes seem to vanish mid-flight, leaving behind no trace of their existence. Ships disappear from the open waters, baffling search crews. UFO sightings are not uncommon, with military officers reporting unidentified flying objects over the skies of Alaska. In some cases, strange sightings have led to even more extraordinary claims. For example, there's an old tale about an entire village fleeing in terror, abandoning their homes due to the appearance of a giant, hairy, man-like creature, an event that has been linked to Bigfoot or other cryptid legends. But perhaps the most famous incident associated with the Alaska Triangle is the disappearance of a plane-carrying House Majority Leader Hale Boggs and Alaska Representative Nick Begich in 1972. On October 16th of that year, the two politicians, along with Begich's special assistant Russell Brown and their pilot Don Johns, boarded a Cessna C-3I-10 aircraft for a flight from Anchorage to Juneau. The flight was supposed to last about 3 hours and 30 minutes. The weather that morning was less than ideal, with reports of turbulence, low visibility, and potential icing conditions. Although Don Johns was an experienced pilot, his reputation as a risk-taker raised eyebrows. 10 minutes after takeoff, Johns radioed the tower, but after that, nothing more was heard from the plane or its occupants. An hour after the aircraft failed to arrive in Juneau, an intensive search was launched. For 39 days, over 400 planes scoured the area, yet no trace of the Cessna or its passengers was ever found. The case remains one of the most mysterious aviation disappearances in history, fueling various conspiracy theories. Some claim that J. Edgar Hoover had a bomb placed on the plane to silence Hale Boggs, who allegedly wanted to reopen the investigation into the Kennedy assassination. This theory remains a favorite among those who believe in the power of the Alaska Triangle, as it suggests that something far more sinister than weather or pilot error was at play. However, Alaska's landscape itself is a formidable adversary. The state is home to some of the most treacherous terrain and challenging geography on Earth. Its massive mountains are cloaked in glaciers, riddled with deep crevasses, and give way to dense forests. These forests then lead to the unforgiving waters of the North Pacific Ocean. When coupled with Alaska's frequently unpredictable and harsh weather conditions, it becomes easier to see why planes and boats can go missing so easily in this region. Even with modern technology, the Alaska Triangle remains a deadly place for both adventurers and seasoned professionals. Since the advent of air travel in Alaska, planes have been disappearing over its skies. While some wreckage is occasionally found, discovered by hikers or washed up on shorelines, many aircraft are never seen again. For example, hikers have stumbled upon the remains of planes decades after they vanished, and fishermen have found seat cushions or debris from aircraft that have disappeared into the waters. However, in cases like the Boggs baggage flight, no trace of the aircraft or its passengers has ever surfaced. The fate of the missing plane remains an unsolved mystery, with no wreckage, no bodies, and no clear answers. Another mysterious disappearance within the Alaska Triangle occurred in 1950, when a Douglas C-54 Skymaster, a military aircraft, vanished into thin air. On January 26th, at 11:15 a.m., the plane took off from Elmendorf Air Force Base in Anchorage, bound for Great Falls, Montana. On board were 36 passengers and 8 crew members, most of whom were military personnel. Among the passengers were 2 military dependents, a pregnant woman and her young son. The flight was expected to take about 8.5 hours, and the weather forecast was favorable, with clear skies and excellent visibility. For the first 2 hours, the flight went smoothly, and the pilots reported their position as they passed various communication stations. As the plane crossed into Canada's Yukon Territory, it made a routine call to a radio range near Beaver Creek. The pilot estimated they would reach the next checkpoint at Aishihik in 20 minutes. The call was normal, with no signs of trouble. But after that, the plane fell silent. It never made contact with Aishihik, and no further transmissions were received. When the plane failed to arrive in Great Falls, it was declared missing, and a massive search was launched. Military and civilian aircraft from both the United States and Canada combed the area for clues. A Canadian forest ranger reported seeing a low-flying plane near Snag, Yukon Territory, followed by a loud explosion and columns of black smoke. However, despite his credible report, no wreckage or evidence of a crash was found in the area. Other sightings led investigators in different directions, but none produced any concrete evidence. Experts believe that whatever happened to the Skymaster was likely sudden and catastrophic, perhaps due to structural failure, navigational error, or crew incapacitation. However, those who believe in the Alaska Triangle have other ideas, pointing to the region's history of unexplained disappearances as evidence of something far more mysterious at work. The story of Alan Foster's disappearance in Alaska also is one of many aviation mysteries that have occurred in the unforgiving wilderness of the state. On September 9, 2013, Foster, a highly experienced charter pilot with over 9,000 flight hours, was flying his recently purchased PA-32 360 aircraft from Atlanta to Anchorage. His trip had gone smoothly until he landed in Yakutat, Alaska, for a routine refueling stop. At this point, Foster was only about 360 miles away from his final destination in Anchorage, almost home after the long journey. Before taking off again, he contacted Juneau Flight Service for a weather update. He mentioned that he would divert to Cordova if the weather conditions didn't permit him to make it safely to Anchorage. Unfortunately, only 18 minutes after his departure from Yakutat, radar detected Foster's plane at 100 feet, but that would be the last time anyone would see the aircraft. Despite an extensive search effort, neither Foster nor his plane was ever found. One factor that made the search for Foster's plane particularly challenging was that his aircraft lacked a registered emergency locator transmitter, ELT beacon. An ELT beacon could have helped pinpoint the aircraft's location after the crash, but Foster had not yet registered one. It's possible that he planned to take care of this upon his return to Anchorage, but fate intervened before he got the chance. His disappearance joins a long list of aircraft vanishing into Alaska's wilderness, a place notorious for its rugged terrain and unpredictable weather. The disappearance of Foster and others like him in the Alaska Triangle, a region that stretches from Juneau to Anchorage and up to Barrow, is part of a much broader mystery. The Alaska Triangle has become infamous for its high number of unexplained disappearances, with many attributing these phenomena to a combination of natural dangers and otherworldly occurrences. Among the most famous mysteries associated with the area is a series of UFO sightings that have perplexed both civilians and military personnel. One of the most well-documented UFO encounters in Alaskan airspace occurred on November 17, 1986, involving Japan Airlines, JAL, Flight 1628. The flight, piloted by Captain Kenju Terauchi, was a cargo transport traveling from Paris to Tokyo with a load of Beaujolais wine. It had planned stops in Reykjavik, Iceland, and Anchorage, Alaska. The encounter took place around 5:09 p.m. as the flight flew approximately 104 miles northeast of Fort Yukon, Alaska. The Anchorage flight controller requested that the crew adjust their heading to avoid Fort Yukon and Fairbanks, a routine instruction to ensure safe airspace navigation. The co-pilot adjusted the flight's heading by about 15 degrees, an uneventful maneuver, until Captain Terauchi noticed something strange. From his position on the left side of the cockpit, Terauchi saw bright lights shining through the window. These lights appeared below and to the left of the plane, initially making Terauchi think they were military aircraft. But something was off. The lights seemed to be following his plane, matching its speed and altitude. Puzzled, Terauchi contacted the Anchorage Center to ask if any military aircraft were flying near them. The response was negative. According to radar, no other aircraft, civilian or military, were in their vicinity. This was the first indication that something was truly unusual. The lights began to move erratically, no longer simply following the plane, but actively changing their positions. At one point, the lights shot directly in front of JAL 1628, illuminating the cockpit so brightly that Terauchi and his crew felt the warmth from the UFO's thrusters. However, despite this bizarre situation, Terauchi and his crew were more fascinated than frightened. They continued to observe the lights, noting how they pulsed and hovered around the plane, keeping pace effortlessly with their massive cargo jet. Despite the clear visual of the UFO, Anchorage Center controllers could not see anything unusual on their radar. But the radar on board JAL 1628 displayed a large green object, round in shape, about 7 to 8 miles away from the aircraft. As they approached Eielson Air Force Base near Fairbanks, the bright city lights provided a clearer view of the massive object following them. According to Terauchi, this craft was enormous, about twice the size of an aircraft carrier. He surmised that this was the mothership of the smaller UFOs they had encountered earlier. As the situation escalated, Terauchi grew increasingly concerned. He attempted evasive maneuvers, but the UFO mirrored his every move. In response, the Anchorage Center offered to scramble a military jet to investigate, but Terauchi declined. He feared that the appearance of military aircraft might provoke the UFO into a hostile response. Instead, the controller contacted a nearby United Airlines flight and requested that its crew try to get a visual on the JAL plane's situation. Strangely, as soon as the United flight arrived in the area, the UFO vanished, and neither Terauchi nor the United Airlines crew saw it again. A week later, John Callahan, who was the FAA Division Chief of Accidents and Investigations in Washington, D.C., received a call from a flight control supervisor in Anchorage. The supervisor informed him that their office was swamped with media inquiries about a UFO encounter. Callahan, initially unaware of the details, asked for clarification, to which the supervisor replied, "It's the UFO." Callahan then ordered the Anchorage team to send him all the data related to the incident, including radar recordings and communications between the ground controller and Captain Terauchi. He also reached out to the military, but the Air Force refused to hand over its tapes. When Callahan received the data, he reviewed the tapes of the conversations between Anchorage Air Traffic Control, or ATC, Elmendorf Air Force Base's NORAD Regional Operations Control Center, and JAL 1628. Despite the fact that the ATC radar did not show any unusual activity, it became clear from the conversations that military radar had indeed detected the UFOs. The NORAD controllers had tracked the UFOs' movements, noting that they were flying at extraordinary speeds, thousands of miles per hour, as they maneuvered around the 747. One of the most striking findings in Callahan's review came toward the end of the encounter, just as the United Airlines flight approached. While Captain Terauchi had lost sight of the giant UFO and the United crew never saw it, NORAD radar continued to track the object. According to their radar, the UFO had tucked in behind the United flight, shadowing it without anyone on board noticing. The aftermath of the incident led to further secrecy. Callahan's boss instructed him to keep quiet about the UFO until they could meet with intelligence and security officials. The following day, a briefing was held that included 3 FBI agents, 3 CIA agents, and members of Ronald Reagan's scientific study team. After Callahan and his team presented all the evidence, one of the CIA agents swore everyone to secrecy, declaring that the meeting had never happened. The agent also confirmed that the UFOs were not military aircraft, such as stealth bombers. However, he warned that releasing this information to the public could cause mass panic. Despite the CIA's efforts to contain the situation, Callahan kept copies of all the original voice and radar recordings in his office. He maintained that Captain Terauchi and his crew had genuinely encountered 3 UFOs, a conclusion that Reagan's scientific team agreed with. They were particularly struck by the fact that this was one of the rare instances where a UFO had been tracked on radar for such an extended period. Just 2 months after the JAL 1628 incident, Alaska's skies witnessed yet another UFO encounter. On January 29, 1987, the crew of Alaska Airlines Flight 53 detected a fast-moving object on their weather radar. The plane was cruising at 35,000 feet, about 60 miles west of McGrath, Alaska, when they calculated that the UFO was traveling at an astonishing speed of 18,000 miles per hour as it moved away from them. The following day, on January 30th, a U.S. Air Force KC-135 jet flying from Anchorage to Fairbanks also reported seeing a massive UFO. Although the details of this sighting remain sparse, it added to the...
A retired U.S. Navy admiral believes that the government should look to the oceans to help solve a mystery in the skies. Rear Admiral Timothy Gallaudet, former oceanographer of the U.S. Navy, cited a 2019 sighting by a Navy warship as evidence that the phenomena of UFOs and USOs are linked. The sighting, recorded off the coast of San Diego, involved a hovering spherical object that appeared to abruptly enter the water. Gallaudet made the case for studying underwater UFOs, or what the government calls UAPs, in a recent paper titled Beneath the Surface: We May Learn More About UAP by Looking in the Ocean. Gallaudet writes that transmedium USOs and UAPs, defined as unidentified objects that appear to travel both in the atmosphere and the water, jeopardize U.S. maritime security. The retired Rear Admiral makes the case that the undersurveyed underwater realm is a threat to maritime security. The oceans form the bedrock of international trade and the American economy, and are where the U.S. Navy operates. The retired U.S. Navy admiral argues that the lack of knowledge about the undersea world poses hazards for submarines, such as collisions with other submarines, such as the independent crashes of the submarines USS San Francisco and USS Connecticut, both of which were incidents that resulted in severe damage to the ships and 1 crew fatality, and undetected underwater seamounts. Further study of this realm, he believes, could shed additional light on these UFO-UAP sightings. One incident to which Gallaudet points in particular is a July 19, 2019 encounter between the Independence-class littoral combat ship USS Omaha and a so-called transmedium UAP. In the incident, the crew of the Omaha, sailing off the coast of San Diego, used their ANCAX-2 electro-optical sensor to record a spherical UAP hovering just over the surface of the Pacific Ocean. The ANCAX-2 is a stabilized sensor turret built for maritime environments that includes a digital video camera, night vision camera, and laser rangefinder. The video is a recording of a screen showing the output of the ANCAX-2. The video appears to have been taken with the night vision camera, which uses imaging infrared to record objects in darkness. The object seemingly moves, tracked by the sensor operator, and then stops to hover. The object stops and hovers a short distance above the surface of the ocean. At the end, the object disappears, with sailors remarking that it made a splash as it entered the water. Meanwhile, one sailor off-camera radios the other ships in the area, the guided missile destroyers Pinckney, Kidd, and Rafael Peralta, asking for a MH-60 helicopter to be launched as soon as possible. The video was leaked to UFO investigator Jeremy Corbell Lockyer and was later verified as genuine by the Navy. A search of the Defense Visual Information Distribution Service, the Pentagon's website for releasing official photos and video, shows 3 of the warships in the encounter: Pinckney, Kidd, and Omaha, in formation in the Eastern Pacific 6 days later on July 25th. Gallaudet also references another sighting from 2013 spotted by U.S. Customs and Border Patrol personnel. The sighting, which took place near Aguadilla, Puerto Rico, was filmed using a similar imaging infrared camera. The video depicts another spherical object appearing to enter the water and then re-emerge without losing any speed. The retired admiral writes, "Over 3 minutes, the object appears to fly at speeds between 40 and 120 miles per hour, enter and exit the Atlantic Ocean without any significant deceleration, reach a maximum underwater velocity of 95 miles per hour, and at one point split into 2 parts before entering the water again." Other possible evidence cited by the admiral includes an incident in 2022, in which the NOAA underwater exploration ship Okeanos Explorer discovered an unusual series of holes on the North Atlantic seafloor at a depth of 1.6 miles. The centimeter-sized holes were in an unusually straight line, and scientists are apparently at a loss to explain their origin. To scrutinize the merit of Gallaudet's statements, we must pause and take a closer look at Tim Gallaudet profile. This man entered the U.S. Navy in 1989 after attending the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. He served with a number of naval oceanography and meteorology commands, and was superintendent of the U.S. Naval Observatory. He assumed command of the Naval Meteorology and Oceanography Command in 2014 and served as oceanographer of the Navy from 2016 until retirement in 2017. After his Navy career, Gallaudet served for 2 years as acting administrator in charge of the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. Today, he sits on the advisory board for Americans for Safe Aerospace, which describes itself as a non-profit organization dedicated to aerospace safety and national security, with a focus on unidentified anomalous phenomena. ASA is led by Ryan Graves, a former U.S. naval aviator who reports having his own UAP sighting on active duty in 2014. In a 2023 op-ed published in The Hill, Gallaudet called UAPs the story of the century and clearly did not rule out an extraterrestrial cause for them. It's rare for a high-ranking U.S. military officer to directly address UAP issues even in retirement, and the incidents Gallaudet calls attention to are unusual, to say the least. What could possibly possess him to do such a thing? Could aliens be real? Could they be living among us? But if so, what's their goal? Well, let's accept that alien invasions of Earth are nothing new in sci-fi. One of the most famous examples is War of the Worlds, an H.G. Wells 19th century classic that was adapted into a Tom Cruise movie in 2005. In that film, aliens inexplicably begin bursting from underneath city pavement to incinerate humans. Or in the 1996 sci-fi comedy Mars Attacks, when the Martians first land on Earth, for a moment it appears all will be fine. Then their leader says, We come in peace as the music swells and a dove soars overhead. But seconds later, the Martian pulls out a laser gun and opens fire on a crowd of human onlookers. Yet another blockbuster alien invasion has begun. Of course, that's Hollywood. But the melodrama underscores one of humanity's most widely held fears: that if and when we do encounter extraterrestrial beings, they will wreak all kinds of havoc, much as they do in the movies. Even renowned physicist Stephen Hawking has said repeatedly that he's afraid of aliens wiping out the human race the way a human would wipe out a colony of ants. In 2015, Hawking co-launched an initiative called Breakthrough Listen, which will search for alien communication signals out in the cosmos, and eventually broadcast signals from the human race, with the goal of enabling communication across the universe. According to Hawking, we don't know much about aliens, but we know about humans. If you look at history, contact between humans and less intelligent organisms have often been disastrous from their point of view, and encounters between civilizations with advanced versus primitive technologies have gone badly for the less advanced. A civilization reading one of our messages could be billions of years ahead of us. If so, they will be vastly more powerful and may not see us as any more valuable than we see bacteria. By contrast to these arguments, many experts believe that if aliens exist, we probably don't matter to them at all. Either way, there's an obvious human-centric nature to the way we think of alien visitors, imagining them bothering to cross the vast distances of space just to, variously, buzz us in their mysterious flying saucers, make friends, abduct us, invade us, or harvest humans for food or energy. The truth is probably no one knows we're here, or cares. We're a young civilization in a very ordinary corner of the universe. Even advanced telescopes from far away would pick up no visible signs of life on Earth, just so-called techno-signatures of a planet that has water and oxygen. And for all the imagination that other civilizations would pick up our radio and television broadcasts, like Hitler's opening of the 1936 Olympics, one of the first major broadcasts, or the Super Bowl, the most powerful, frequent signal we broadcast into space. No human signal has journeyed even 100 light-years yet, a distance that covers only a sliver of the universe, even if the signal remains detectable across that distance. Even powerful telescopes or visiting craft from nearby alien civilizations could have looked at Earth not that long ago, and with even relatively advanced technology, and missed that we existed at all. Go back just 10,000 years or so, and human settlements would have been all but invisible to surveillance from space. So, as Stephen Hawking bluntly summarized it, the human race is just a chemical scum on a moderate-sized planet, orbiting around a very average star in the outer suburb of one among 100 billion galaxies. Elsewhere, Carl Sagan, the famous astronomer who was one of the strongest proponents of the search for extraterrestrial life in the 20th century, portrayed aliens as benign. But if aliens aren't interested in harvesting our lands or our bodies, why would they make contact? Well, a pure motive is curiosity. Anyway, if aliens did come to Earth, it would probably be as researchers, biologists, anthropologists, linguists, keen to understand the peculiar workings of life on Earth, to meet humanity and learn of our art, music, culture, languages, philosophies, and religions. That idea raises the question of whether our own human longing to reach for the stars may exist elsewhere, or even occur to other species. There is growing evidence that there are perhaps many marine environments across the universe, including not just planets, but moons with vast oceans far deeper than our own. Perhaps these ocean moons or ocean planets have hot, deep sea vents like Earth, the intense and wild environments where scientists increasingly believe might be one of the possible places that life began here. Extrapolate a bit from there, and there could be all manner of life-supporting marine planets filled with creatures equivalent to our highly intelligent whales and dolphins, creatures that surely pass the intelligent life test, and yet who have never glimpsed the Milky Way above and wondered about journeying to the stars. The desire to know our place in the universe is a core species yearning, even human. People have pondered the question for thousands of years. Indeed, hundreds of years before the birth of Christ, Greek philosophers such as Anaximander and Epicurus speculated that the cosmos is teeming with planets, many of which may support life. However, we couldn't move beyond mere speculation for a very long time, until we invented telescopes and developed a proper understanding of the scientific method. Humanity notched both of those milestones centuries ago, and scientists are now going great guns in the search for alien life. Well, going great guns is a bit of an overstatement, but we've made considerable progress, especially with SETI. SETI didn't really kick off until 1960. In that year, Cornell University astronomer Frank Drake used a radio telescope in West Virginia to listen for signals coming from the stars Tau Ceti and Epsilon Eridani. Called Project Ozma, this effort incorporated ideas from a seminal 1959 paper by Giuseppe Cocconi and Philip Morrison. Scientists have been scanning the heavens for techno-signatures ever since then. Initially, they focused almost exclusively on radio signals, but flashes of light are in play now as well. These are the targets of increasingly common optical SETI efforts. SETI scientists have to keep an open mind. After all, we don't know what sorts of messages an advanced alien civilization might beam out. So, astronomers in the field generally look for signals that appear weird and artificial, something coming from deep space that isn't produced by any known natural astrophysical phenomenon. It would also be nice if the signal recurs, so it can be studied repeatedly and in detail. One-offs can remain forever and frustratingly mysterious, as 1977's famous "wow" signal shows. In that case, a radio dish operated by the Ohio State University picked up something so intriguing that astronomer Jerry Eman wrote "wow" on the data printout. Researchers scoured that same patch of sky again and again, hoping to get another ping, but they never did. The SETI hunt, it should be noted, has historically been a shoestring operation. Finding enough money to keep the telescopes running has been a consistent problem. The U.S. Congress axed a planned NASA SETI project in 1993, and ever since then, extraterrestrial hunters have mostly had to turn to the private sector for cash. Without steady funding, progress was slow for several years. But private money has flowed more freely into the SETI field recently. Most of it comes from one man, tech billionaire Yuri Milner. Passionate about the search for alien life, Milner established an ambitious program in 2015 called Breakthrough Initiatives to seek out extraterrestrials. Among the projects under the Breakthrough umbrella are the $100 million Breakthrough Listen SETI campaign and the $100 million Breakthrough Starshot, which aims to develop the technology required to send tiny robotic probes to nearby exoplanet systems at about 20% the speed of light. There's also Breakthrough Message, which aims to both help humanity craft the best possible message to send out into the cosmos and encourage debate and conversation about SETI in general. And there is considerable debate within the scientific community about SETI. Some people, including the late physicist Stephen Hawking, have argued that it's unwise to advertise our presence to aliens whose nature and intent are complete mysteries to us. These creatures may pillage our planet after picking up our ping, after all. But other researchers think any creatures advanced enough to travel to Earth to enslave or eat us would already know we're here anyway. Breakthrough Message pledges not to actually broadcast any SETI signals until this debate has played itself out. But humanity has already beamed out messages on multiple occasions, most famously in 1974 with the Arecibo message. And those are just the intentional, directed missives. We're leaking radio signals in all directions at all times, providing cosmic breadcrumbs for anyone close enough to find them. Around the same time that SETI was getting off the ground, planetary scientists began getting their first good looks at alien worlds. In 1964, Mariner 4 flew by Mars, returning the first up-close images of the red planet. Those photos revealed a dry, heavily cratered, and seemingly desolate world, forcing many scientists to recalibrate previously optimistic notions of Mars' habitability. But the optimists got some good news in 1969 after Mariner 9 arrived in orbit around Mars, becoming the first spacecraft to circle another planet in the process. This probe spotted river channels and other evidence of past liquid water activity on the Martian surface. These discoveries helped spur NASA to develop two ambitious life-hunting Mars missions, Viking 1 and 2, which launched a few weeks apart in 1975. The identical Viking landers each carried 4 biology experiments which hunted for signs of microbial life in the red dirt. One of those experiments, called labeled release, returned data consistent with evidence of microbial life. Indeed, labeled release principal investigator Gil Levin argued that the Vikings found evidence of Mars life. However, most scientists who studied the data disagreed with Levin, determining that the data could be explained by abiotic, non-life-based, chemical reactions. The Viking results taught NASA and astrobiologists some valuable lessons, chiefly that they didn't know enough about Mars to mount a proper life hunt there. So, the space agency eventually embarked on a long-term follow-the-water exploration strategy, seeking to learn more about ancient environmental conditions on the red planet and how they changed over time. This strategy gave us many prominent Mars missions over the past few decades, including the orbiter's Mars Odyssey, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, and Mars Atmosphere and Volatile Evolution, the rover's Spirit, Opportunity and Curiosity, and the Phoenix Lander. These robotic explorers did their jobs well, finding lots of evidence that ancient Mars was quite wet and helping scientists better understand why, how, and when the red planet transitioned to the frigid desert world it is today. Curiosity has taken this work the furthest, finding that its landing site, the 96-mile-wide, 154 kilometers Gale Crater, hosted a long-lived lake and stream system billions of years ago that could have supported Earth-like life. Meanwhile, some scientists continued the hunt for Mars life, focusing on aliens that may have fallen fortuitously to Earth. Over the eons, billions of red planet rocks have made their way here, after being blasted into space by powerful asteroid or comet impacts. A lot of Earth material has ended up on Mars as well, but the ledger is decidedly unbalanced. The sun's powerful gravity pulls more stuff inward, toward Earth. This extensive rock swapping, by the way, has led some scientists to postulate that life actually arose first on Mars, then made its way to Earth later. In 1996, researchers announced that they'd found potential signs of life in one such Mars meteorite, known as Allen Hills 84001. It was a very big deal. The result was published in the prestigious journal Science, and President Bill Clinton held a press conference about the news on the White House lawn. The Allen Hills 84001 story ended up going down a Viking path. Other scientists picked at the claim, and a consensus emerged that the meteorite evidence was ambiguous at best. But, like Levin, the Allen Hills 84001 team held firm in its findings and continues to do so today. NASA and the broader exploration community weren't focused solely on Mars for all these years, of course. The Cassini-Huygens mission, which ended in September 2017, transformed scientists' understanding of the Saturn system and our solar system's potential to host alien life. That mission found that Titan, Saturn's largest moon, has a hydrocarbon-based weather system, and that the frigid moon's surface harbors lakes and seas of liquid ethane and methane. Life could swim around in these seas, though it would have to be very different than the life we know here on Earth. And the Cassini orbiter spotted geysers blasting from the South Pole of another Saturn moon, the ice-covered Enceladus. This discovery and other Cassini observations revealed that Enceladus harbors a big ocean of salty liquid water beneath its shell. The geysers produce a huge plume of water ice and other material, a cloud so substantial that it creates Saturn's E-ring. Cassini flew through this plume on multiple occasions, gathering samples that scientists analyzed for clues about the Moon's subsurface environment. The researchers found carbon-containing organic compounds and free hydrogen, the latter of which suggests the existence of a hydrothermal system in Enceladus's buried ocean. Undersea hydrothermal vents are one popularly invoked environment for the origin of life on Earth. Buried oceans are relatively common in the outer solar system. Scientists have come to realize multiple ice-covered Jupiter moons seem to have these oceans: Ganymede, Callisto, and most intriguingly, Europa. Europa's huge subsurface sea seems to be in contact with the Moon's rocky core, like the ocean of Enceladus is, making possible a range of complex chemical reactions that could theoretically have led to life. Titan seems to have a buried ocean of salty water as well, meaning the Moon likely has two very different, potentially habitable environments. Observations by NASA's New Horizons spacecraft indicate that liquid water may slosh beneath Pluto's surface too, and the list goes on. Indeed, the abundance of water worlds in the outer solar system suggests that looking for Earth 2.0 may not be the best life-hunting strategy. Most of the habitable real estate in the cosmos may be buried under ice. These revelations about our celestial backyard have come in parallel with big news about the cosmos at large. Over the past decade or so, we have learned that our Milky Way galaxy is teeming with potentially life-supporting worlds, as Anaximander and Epicurus surmised so many centuries ago. Much of this knowledge comes courtesy of NASA's pioneering Kepler Space Telescope, which operated from 2009 through November 2018. Kepler is responsible for nearly 2/3 of the 4,400 confirmed exoplanet discoveries to date, and mission data reveal that planets outnumber stars in our galaxy. Many of those planets might bear more than a passing resemblance to Earth. Kepler found that at least 20% of Milky Way stars probably host rocky planets in their habitable zones, the just right range of orbital distances where liquid water could persist on a world's surface. Some of these potentially habitable worlds are just a stone's throw away in the cosmic scheme of things. For example, the nearest star to the Sun, Proxima Centauri, which is about 4.2 light-years away from us, hosts a roughly Earth-sized planet in the habitable zone. This world, called Proxima b, is a prime breakthrough starshot target. And the TRAPPIST-1 system, which lies 39 light-years from us, boasts 7 rocky worlds, 3 of which may be capable of supporting life as we know it. However, both Proxima Centauri and TRAPPIST-1 are red dwarfs, like 70% of the Milky Way's stellar population. Red dwarfs are small but very active stars, and their intense flaring may severely dampen their planet's habitability. Kepler's legacy is being carried on by other exoplanet missions, such as NASA's Transiting Exoplanet Survey satellite, TESS, which is expected to find thousands more alien worlds circling nearby stars, ESA's Cheops probe, which aims to characterize some of these neighboring worlds, and the most powerful observatory ever launched, James Webb Space Telescope. The avalanche of exoplanet discoveries, as well as finds much closer to home, have brought astrobiology from the scientific fringe firmly into the mainstream. NASA is openly prioritizing the search for alien life these days, as some current and coming missions show. For example, in July 2020, the agency launched the Perseverance rover, which landed in February 2021 to hunt for signs of ancient Mars life and collect samples for eventual return to Earth. Finding evidence of long-dead microbes is expected to be a very tricky task, one ideally carried out by teams of scientists in well-equipped labs studying pristine pieces of Mars specifically selected for their life-preserving potential. In 2024, NASA's Europa Clipper mission launched toward the Jupiter system. Clipper will orbit the gas giant but make dozens of flybys of Europa, characterizing the moon's subsurface ocean and scouting out good touchdown sites for a future life-hunting lander, among other tasks. And in 2028, NASA plans to launch Dragonfly, a probe that will fly through Titan's thick, smoggy skies. Dragonfly's main goals involve investigating the complex chemistry that could set the stage for life's emergence and assessing Titan's habitability, but the rotorcraft will also search for biosignatures. The agency will also soon start hunting for aliens much farther afield. In January 2023, Dr. Mark Clampin, the director of NASA's Astrophysics Division, told a meeting of the American Astronomical Society that the successor to Webb would be called the Habitable Worlds Observatory, or HWO for short. Although it's still very early days in the HWO's design process, even the name is only a working title. A couple of things have already become clear about the project. HWO will be as large as Webb, but will observe at the same wavelengths as Hubble. This means that the HWO's mirror should be around 19 MAFT in diameter, and instead of infrared, it should work at optical and ultraviolet wavelengths. Like Webb, it will be situated at Lagrange point 2, the gravitational sweet spot, 932,000 miles from Earth. And, like Hubble, it will be designed for periodic upgrading, although these servicing missions will be undertaken by robotic spacecraft instead of astronauts. The concept for this mission comes from an amalgamation of two others that NASA studied in the late 2010s. The first was called LUVOIR, the Large Ultraviolet, Optical, and Infrared Surveyor. As the name suggests, it would cover a large range of wavelengths centered on visible light and be a general astrophysical observatory, as Webb and Hubble were. Two conceptual designs were developed for LUVOIR, one with an 8 mem diameter, 26 ft mirror, and one with a 49 ft diameter mirror. Both designs would be made of hexagonal mirror segments, like Webb. The second concept that NASA investigated was the Habitable Exoplanet Imaging Mission, or HABEX. This was envisaged to be a space telescope with a 13th diameter mirror. Although optimized for the investigation of exoplanet atmospheres, it could also extend many of the investigations that Hubble had pioneered. Both projects were submitted to the 2020 Astronomy and Astrophysics Decadal Survey, run by the National Academy of Sciences in the US, along with two other mission concepts, an X-ray telescope called LYNX and a far-infrared telescope called Origins. After due deliberation, the survey recommended NASA conduct a program of technological development for 5 years to ready itself to build all of these missions, with the caveat that LUVOIR and HABEX be merged into a single mission with a 19 ft diameter telescope. This is the mission now called HWO, that Clampin announced at the American Astronomical Society, and it will be the first mission to be worked on to completion of the technology development. In addition, some of this alien searching will continue to occur in Earth-based studies, and it won't just involve inspection of Mars meteorites. There's an ongoing search for a shadow biosphere on our planet, an entire tree of life separate from the one that includes bacteria, bats, birds, and everything else we currently recognize as alive. This pursuit isn't so crazy if you think about it. After all, life appeared on Earth about 4 billion years ago, very quickly considering that our planet formed just 4.5 billion years ago and remained hot and inhospitable for a long time thereafter. So, life's emergence doesn't seem miraculous, which, in turn, implies that it could have happened here more than once. Given the incredible abundance of potentially habitable real estate, and that's just for Earth-like life, to say nothing of the environments that could support strange life of various types. Why haven't we found extraterrestrial yet? Nobel Prize-winning physicist Enrico Fermi famously posed this question in 1950, specifically referring to intelligent aliens. 7 decades later, the answer to the Fermi paradox remains elusive. However, answers is probably a better formulation, because multiple factors are probably working together to keep us from finding intelligent aliens. Among the foremost is the vastness of space which makes it difficult for two civilizations to touch base. Consider, Proxima b is just 4.2 light-years away, in a galaxy 100,000 light-years wide. But 4.2 light-years is about 26 trillion miles, 42 trillion kilometers, an expanse that would take humanity's current spacecraft tens of thousands of years to cross. Contact with intelligent aliens would require temporal and temperamental alignments as well. Their civilization would have to rise in sync with ours, no mean feat, in a universe that's 13.82 billion years old. An extraterrestrial would have to want to reach out. That's no given either. There are many reasons some aliens may want to keep quiet, as the meti-pessimists have pointed out. Or maybe intelligence is rare throughout the cosmos, even if life isn't. Earth has been inhabited for about 4 billion years after all, but we've been sending out radio waves for just a century or so and launching spacecraft only since 1957. And it's tough to find faraway microbes, which presumably have not yet invented the radio. Our technological youth may be the biggest factor of all. We've just begun the search for our cosmic neighbors after all, and that search has mostly been halting and haphazard, conducted by small teams of dedicated researchers who've had to scrounge money to keep the lights on. But that's changing, as the exciting new missions and instruments currently in development show. So we may start getting some answers very soon. There aren't many secrets that Edward Snowden doesn't know. Go down in history as one of America's most consequential whistleblowers, alongside Daniel Ellsberg and Bradley Manning. Former CIA official Edward Snowden is responsible for handing over material from one of the world's most secretive organizations, the NSA. In a 2013 world-shattering revelation, this man has exposed secrets that shake the very foundations of our perception. And now, the renowned NSA whistleblower and an American hero in the eyes of many has just revealed something deeply unsettling about UFOs. From classified encounters to shadowy alliances, the truth about extraterrestrial life has been hidden in plain sight. Snowden's latest revelation transcends the realm of extraterrestrial life, and it is a wake-up call that demands our attention. People have seen intriguing or confounding objects in the sky for as long as we've been looking up. Over the eons, for example, many different cultures have regarded meteors and comets as supernatural phenomena, or at least processed them through a supernatural lens. These dramatic skylights have been deemed manifestations of a deity's displeasure. Something wonderful, terrible, or simply consequential is soon to happen. Evidence of this view can be found in the 11th century Bayeux Tapestry, which chronicles the events leading up to the Norman conquest of England in 1066 CE. The famous Halley's Comet zoomed through the inner solar system that same year, and the 70-meter-long tapestry depicts it blazing ominously above the head of England's King Harold II. But the UFO phenomenon as we know it today is much more recent, dating to the era of powered flight. This makes a lot of sense. There weren't nearly as many flying objects to be puzzled by in William the Conqueror's day. UFOs really took off during World War II, when Allied pilots in both the European and Pacific theaters reported seeing puzzling lights or objects in the sky. They called these curiosities Foo Fighters, a term better known today as the band fronted by former Nirvana drummer Dave Grohl. Then, in June 1947, American businessman and aviator Kenneth Arnold reported seeing 9 shiny, mysterious craft zipping through the skies near Washington's Mount Rainier. Some newspaper stories described these UFOs as flying discs or flying saucers, and the latter term soon wormed its way into the public consciousness. UFO reports surged in the wake of Arnold's sighting, some of them even winding up in the pages of the New York Times. One of the items the Times picked up was the discovery of some seemingly exotic wreckage on a ranch in Lincoln County, New Mexico, in 1947. In July of that year, a public information officer at the relatively nearby Roswell Army Airfield described the debris as a flying disc, briefly igniting a firestorm of confused interest. Army officials quickly retracted that statement, explaining that the material in question was the remains of a crashed weather balloon, and the Roswell incident faded into obscurity. The U.S. military, concerned that some of these UFOs might pose a threat to national security, soon began to investigate sightings systematically. The Air Force established Project Sign to this end in 1947, then followed that with the similarly short-lived Project Grudge in 1948. The more well-known Project Blue Book got started in 1952 and ran all the way to 1969, examining more than 12,600 UFO reports along the way. One of the sightings Project Blue Book investigated was that of Betty and Barney Hill, who claimed they were captured and examined by extraterrestrials in rural New Hampshire in September 1961. The couple's account started getting picked up by newspapers in 1965, becoming the first ever widely publicized alien abduction story. And of course, UFO sightings didn't end when Project Blue Book wrapped up. Instead, they've kept on rolling in over the decades. For instance, UN 1966, the Westall High School incident in Melbourne, Australia, witnessed by hundreds of students and staff, described a large, silvery, disc-shaped object hovering above the school grounds. The incident remains a compelling example of a mass sighting with multiple eyewitness testimonies. The Rendlesham Forest incident in 1980, often dubbed Britain's Roswell, involved sightings of strange lights and a triangular craft near a military base in Suffolk, England. U.S. Air Force personnel reported witnessing these events and even claimed to touch the mysterious object, leaving marks on the ground. Some of the most famous ones in the past half-century include that of Travis Walton, an Arizona man whose 1975 alien abduction claim was dramatized in the 1993 film Fire in the Sky. The Rendlesham Forest incident, a string of mysterious observations near England's Royal Air Force Woodbridge Station in December 1980, and the Phoenix Lights, which confused many Arizonans in March 1997. And in November 2004, several U.S. Navy pilots flying off the coast of San Diego reported seeing bizarre craft zooming through the sky, seemingly maneuvering in ways that exceeded the limits of known technology. Other Navy pilots had similar experiences off the U.S. East Coast a decade later, making a series of intriguing observations from June 2014 to March 2015. The pilots captured infrared video of some of these encounters using their onboard camera systems. 3 of these videos went viral in December 2017 when the New York Times published them as part of a blockbuster story about a previously secret military UFO investigating effort called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or AATIP for short. Politico and The Washington Post also published deep dives into AATIP, which was first funded at the request of then-Senator Harry Reid and appears to have been a driving force in the rebranding of UFOs to UAP, a term with less historical baggage. The program ran from 2007 until a funding phase-out in 2012, though AATIP personnel have said its work continued in an unofficial capacity for a few years after that. ATIP has a successor, and it was born in the sunlight, comparatively speaking. In the summer of 2020, the Pentagon announced the establishment of the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, known as UAPTF, whose mission is to detect, analyze, and catalog UAPs that could potentially pose a threat to U.S. national security. We've seen some of the task force's work already. In June 2021, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence released a congressionally mandated report outlining what the UAPTF, the FBI, and the Office of Naval Intelligence make of 144 recent UFO encounters documented by U.S. government censors, with a focus on sightings by Navy pilots between November 2004 and March 2021. The report, a preliminary 9-page assessment that you can read here, found that 18 of the 144 UFOs moved in odd or unexpected ways. Some of them appeared to remain stationary in winds aloft, move against the wind, maneuver abruptly, or move at considerable speed, without discernible means of propulsion. In a small number of cases, military aircraft systems processed radio frequency energy associated with UAP sightings. Numerous UFO sightings are given added credibility by the testimony of eyewitnesses, most of whom are former government employees. 3 key witnesses testified at 2023 UFO hearing: Ryan Graves and David Fravor, 2 former U.S. Navy aviators who reported highly publicized encounters with unknown objects in military training airspace, and David Grush, a decorated U.S. military combat veteran and Pentagon intelligence officer. In his testimony, Grush claimed he was told of the existence of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program and was denied access to it, prompting him to file the whistleblower complaint. Grush, who served as a member of the Pentagon's short-lived UAP task force from 2019 to 2021, told the committee that his whistleblower complaint is based on information he've been given by individuals with a long-standing track record of legitimacy and service to this country, many of whom also have shared compelling evidence in the form of photography, official documentation, and classified oral testimony to himself and many of his various colleagues. Grush's allegation is that non-human beings had been found, and the government had probably had knowledge of non-human activity since the 1930s. And now, the government even was secretly harboring alien spacecraft. Other witnesses at the hearing were David Fravor, a former Navy commander who on Wednesday recalled seeing a strange object in the sky while on a training mission in 2004, and Ryan Graves, a retired Navy pilot who has claimed that he saw unidentified aerial phenomena off the Atlantic coast every day for at least a couple years. Graves, who has since founded Americans for Safe Aerospace, a UAP nonprofit, said he was appearing to voice the concerns of more than 30 commercial air crews and military veterans who have the similar encounters. Asked if there were similarities between his sightings and others that have been reported, he said many of the UFOs reported were dark gray or black cubes inside of clear sphere, where the apex or tips of the cube were touching the inside of the sphere. When UFOs encounters report is increasing, a question comes to our mind. How could we communicate with aliens if we ever find them? While scientists are still hesitant, the U.S. government whistleblower Edward Snowden says he has the answer. In a podcast interview with astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson, Snowden suggested that alien communications might be encrypted so well that humans trying to eavesdrop on extraterrestrials would have no idea they were hearing anything but noise. There's only a small window in the development of communication in which unencrypted messages are the norm, Snowden said.
So if you have an alien civilization trying to listen for other civilizations, or our civilization trying to listen for aliens, there's only one small period in the development of their society where all of their communications will be sent via the most primitive and most unprotected means.
But those holding out hope for contact from extraterrestrials can breathe easy. Humanity's current search for alien intelligence doesn't rely on an intelligible message, say scientists with the SETI Institute, which is dedicated to the search for life in the universe. The real hunt, they say, is for the medium. As Seth Shostak, director of the SETI Institute's Center for SETI Research, said, "We're not looking for the message. We're looking for the signal that tells us that somebody has a transmitter." Scientists have good reason to think billions of inhabited worlds are sprinkled throughout our galaxy in a universe teeming with life, perhaps even technologically advanced life. But where are they? Scientists can debate the question until they're blue in the face, and they have. But the only way to find out the definitive answer is to observe and explore. And here's the good news. Never before have scientists had so many tools at their disposal. Excitement is palpable that in 10 to 20 years, astrobiology could make the critical leap from theory to direct observation, no longer suffering the ignominy of being a science whose subject matter is not proven to exist. Although there's no official competition or roadmap, scientists across multiple disciplines are pursuing three general pathways for detecting extraterrestrial life. First, they're hunting for life in the solar system, using robotic or sample return missions. Second, they're searching for compelling evidence of life-bearing worlds by probing exoplanet atmospheres. Third, they're chasing the ultimate jackpot: evidence of intelligent life through purposefully seeking out alien signals or receiving them by serendipity. A major challenge in any search for life is defining exactly what we're looking for. Terrestrial life assumes such a dizzying variety of forms, from acid-loving bacteria to kangaroos, that attempts to define it inevitably leave out entire classes of critters. Plus, what's out there in the greater universe might be even more extreme than anything we can imagine from our limited geocentric perspective. In their recent book, Imagined Life, planetary scientist Michael Summers and physicist James Trefil identify three kinds of life: life like us, life not like us, and life really not like us. The first centers around all terrestrial biota, life based on organic, carbon-based chemistry, using liquid water as a solvent. The second involves chemistry based on elements other than carbon, such as silicon. The third is the wild card, life forms so far outside our conceptual horizon that we might not even recognize them as being alive. Scientists are familiar with the first type of life, so they have some idea of what they're looking for. Better yet, solar system exploration over the past 5 decades has greatly increased the inventory of relatively nearby candidate worlds that might harbor some form of familiar biology. Mars may be the best candidate for finding traces of life in our solar system. While there are no guarantees, the good news is that a massively ambitious mission designed to search for life on the red planet is well underway. Mars is, of course, the focal point of NASA's current search for signs of extraterrestrial life within our solar system. The main reason for this is the fact that we know the red planet had flowing water rivers and habitable conditions billions of years ago. In a bid to find signs of life on Mars, the U.S. Space Agency's Perseverance rover has collected several samples of Martian soil that will eventually be picked up by automated spacecraft designed for the Mars Sample Return mission and brought back to Earth at some point in the 2030s. The Perseverance rover landed on Mars in February 2021. Since then, it has been exploring the Jezero crater, an ancient lakebed where NASA believes it could find fossilized traces of alien life. Once back on Earth, scientists will analyze the Mars samples in the hope of finding traces of ancient microbial life. On the other hand, the global scientific community's interest in Venus has been rekindled in recent years, and several missions to our planetary neighbor have been proposed by NASA and other organizations. Though the focus today is heavily on Mars exploration, the first successful interplanetary probe mission, NASA's Mariner 2, was actually sent to Venus. Today, several Venus missions, including NASA's Veritas and Da Vinci Plus and Rocket Lab's private Venus mission, are undergoing early preparations. One of the main reasons for this renewed interest is the possibility that Venus could harbor alien life in its upper atmosphere. Scientists believe that, despite the inhospitable conditions on the planet's surface, the clouds of Venus have air pressure similar to those on Earth, and conditions where life might have evolved. Io has a similarly fiery surface to Venus, given the fact that it is the most geologically active world in the solar system, with more than 400 active volcanoes spread throughout its surface. This activity is thought to be caused by the gravitational force of Jupiter and Jupiter's other moons pulling at Io's surface. Due to the high volcanic activity, the surface of Io is coated in sulfur, meaning life is unlikely. Still, scientists have pointed out that the heat could have led to the evolution of some incredibly resilient form of life that was able to flourish on parts of the moon with less volcanic activity. NASA has proposed a mission called the Io Volcano Observer, IVO, which would send a probe to the moon near the end of the decade. If that mission goes ahead, there is a very small chance it could discover extraterrestrial life. In addition, Callisto is one of many moons in the solar system thought to feature a vast subsurface ocean that could have allowed for the evolution of alien life. Aside from the ocean, believed to be located around 155 miles underground, Callisto also has a thin atmosphere of hydrogen, carbon dioxide, and oxygen. That combination is more Earth-like than most other moons on this list, which is a good sign. One issue with the viability of Callisto to harbor life, though, is the fact that the moon's surface is extremely cold. Still, the European Space Agency's Jupiter Icy Moon Explorer, or JUICE mission, is on its way to Jupiter, and it will explore Callisto as well as Ganymede and Europa. Besides, Saturn's sixth largest moon, Enceladus, is thought to have a saltwater ocean under its thick, marble-like icy outer layer, making it an important candidate in the search for alien life. What's more, NASA recently discovered evidence of hydrothermal activity deep beneath the moon's surface. Hydrothermal vents in Earth's oceans are thought to have played a key role in the evolution of life on our planet. As such, the discovery of a saltwater ocean and hydrothermal activity makes Enceladus an exciting proposition in the search for life in our solar system. Elsewhere, Saturn's largest moon, Titan, also has some striking similarities to Earth. It has one of the heaviest atmospheres in the solar system outside Earth and Venus. Not only that, its surface features flowing rivers, lakes, and seas. The key difference, though, is that these are made of running methane rather than water. However, the moon is also rich in organic materials required for life to flourish. We will know more about conditions on Titan once NASA's rotorcraft mission, called Dragonfly, reaches the moon in the 2030s. That mission will use the lessons learned from NASA's Mars Ingenuity helicopter, the first human-built machine to perform a controlled flight off Earth to explore the surface of Titan and shed new light on the distant moon. The last candidate is Europa. In October, the U.S. Space Agency aims to launch its Europa Clipper spacecraft aboard a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket. The mission will investigate Jupiter's moon Europa, which is arguably the strongest candidate for hosting life in our solar system. Scientists believe Europa is home to an internal ocean with twice the amount of water than that contained in all of Earth's oceans. It may also have conditions that make it suitable for supporting life. The Europa Clipper spacecraft will investigate the Jovian moon using spectrometers and will also observe emerging plumes blasting water into space from the moon's surface. If there is life in Europa, it almost certainly was completely independent from the origin of life on Earth. That would mean the origin of life must be pretty easy throughout the galaxy and beyond, explained project scientist Robert Pappalardo on NASA's official Europa Clipper page. Another piece of good news: thanks to revolutionary advances in the discovery and characterization of exoplanets over the past 20 years, it is now conceivable that scientists could find the first strong evidence for extraterrestrial life on a planet outside the solar system. As of now, astronomers had discovered over 5,500 planets outside our solar system. And thanks to space telescopes such as James Webb, Hubble, and Kepler, as well as numerous ground-based instruments, we have surprisingly detailed information about the size, mass, density, and even atmospheric composition of many of these worlds. For now, the best information on exoplanet atmospheres comes from transit spectroscopy. In short, when a planet crosses, or transits, the face of its host star, as seen from Earth's line of sight, starlight passes through the planet's upper atmosphere and interacts with the chemicals there. By comparing spectra taken during a transit to observations of the star alone when the planet is not transiting, astronomers can extract information about the planet's atmospheric chemistry. Make no mistake, these are exceedingly difficult and time-consuming observations. But several teams have used this technique to reveal atmospheric constituents on a few dozen exoplanets, finding chemicals such as water, carbon monoxide, iron, magnesium, sodium, potassium, and even the rare elements scandium and yttrium. One particularly interesting planet is K2-18b, a super-Earth located around 120 light-years from Earth. This planet is between 2 and 3 times the width of Earth, with 8.6 times the mass of our planet. It's also located in the habitable zone of its star, the region neither too hot nor too cold to support liquid water. The exoplanet is thus theorized to be an ocean, or Hycean world, replete with liquid water, a vital ingredient for life as we know it. What's notable, this planet gets almost the same amount of solar radiation as Earth, and if atmosphere is removed as a factor, K2-18b has a temperature close to Earth's, which is also an ideal situation in which to find life. Using Hubble, 2 research teams have found significant amounts of water vapor in its hydrogen and helium-rich atmosphere. The water probably condenses into clouds that might produce rain. It remains unknown whether K2-18b has a rocky or watery surface that would be conducive to life. In the words of Bjørn Benneke of the Université de Montréal in Canada, leader of one of the 2 teams that detected water vapor, "It is really the first time that we have probed the conditions on a habitable zone planet." And now, the excitement around the potential detection of life signs on this exoplanet is arising when the James Webb Space Telescope detected potential biosignature elements in its atmosphere. Observations made by James Webb revealed possible traces of a biologically produced gas called dimethylsulfide in the planet's atmosphere. On Earth, this chemical is known to originate only from microscopic marine creatures such as phytoplankton, giving researchers hope that perhaps the oceans of K2-18b are swimming with life as well. But the detection came with caveats mostly based on the faintness of the chemical signals when seen at such extreme distances from Earth. As study lead author Shang-Min Tsai, a project scientist at the University of California, Riverside said in a statement, "The dimethyl sulfide signal from the Webb telescope was not very strong and only showed up in certain ways when analyzing the data. We wanted to know if we could be sure." The new research, published May in the Astrophysical Journal Letters, further pumps the brakes on this tantalizing discovery. Motivated by the fact that organically produced dimethyl sulfide disappears rapidly in Earth's atmosphere before it can accumulate in large quantities, the researchers used computer simulations to model whether dimethyl sulfide could ever reach detectable levels in a hydrogen-rich exoplanet's atmosphere. The team determined that dimethyl sulfide can reach detectable levels, as long as the hypothetical critters in K2-18b's oceans pump out 20 times more dimethyl sulfide than plankton do on Earth. That in itself isn't a deal-breaker for the potentially habitable water world. Everything else we know about it makes the planet an ideal situation in which to find life. However, the team's research also found that it is highly unlikely that James Webb would be capable of separating a dimethyl sulfide signal from other, more common atmospheric gases at the specific wavelengths it examined, with NIR spec. Simply put, there could well be biological compounds in K2-18b's atmosphere and prolific life in its oceans, but James Webb probably hasn't detected it. The good news is that the telescope has another instrument on board, the MIRI, that is capable of detecting a broader range of wavelengths and may be much better suited for parsing dimethyl sulfide from methane, the study authors wrote. Follow-up observations of K2-18b using MIRI are already scheduled for this year, with science results expected before year's end. If there is life on K2-18b, farting or otherwise, we may soon have a much better idea. In addition, note that we are living in the golden age of astronomy. The 2020 Astronomy and Astrophysics Decadal Survey placed the development of a new suite of complementary space observatories at the top of the U.S.'s agenda for space-based astrophysics. In response to this recommendation, NASA began a dedicated technological development project for the new Great Observatories program. NASA's original great observatories were the Hubble Space Telescope, the Compton Gamma Ray Observatory, the Chandra X-ray Observatory, and the Spitzer Space Telescope. Working both individually and collaboratively, these missions rewrote the textbooks and revolutionized our understanding of the cosmos. But these spacecraft are aging. Only Hubble and Chandra are still functioning. The new Great Observatories program comprises 3 missions. The Habitable Worlds Observatory, which will work at ultraviolet, optical, and infrared wavelengths, an X-ray observatory, LINX, and the far infrared mission called Origins complete the trio. In Europe, other big missions, such as the X-ray mission New Athena and the infrared mission Life, are being studied too. Together, if funded to completion, the European and American missions will provide complementary science. For years, when searching for non-intelligent species, we've so far been restricted to our solar system, and the spacecraft designed to scour the Martian landscape or observe the moons of Jupiter and Saturn for signs of habitability or life. But the Habitable Worlds Observatory would totally change that by opening up the search to planets beyond our solar system and by being sensitive to life at any stage of its evolution. The trick to doing this is the fact that all living things breathe. This means taking in one gas and expelling another. On Earth, that process forces our atmosphere out of chemical equilibrium by placing more oxygen and methane in our atmosphere than would otherwise occur. If life vanished from Earth tomorrow, the oxygen and methane the atmosphere contains would gradually be removed by chemical and geological processes. So, to find a planet with an atmosphere that can't be explained solely by chemistry could be a sign that there are breathing life forms constantly replenishing the atmosphere with molecules that don't otherwise coexist in nature. And the way to do that is to isolate the light from the target planet. Light carries so much more information than just the brightness of a celestial object. Splitting light into its constituent wavelengths produces a rainbow-like spectrum that's intersected with a series of dark lines. These lines are produced by the different atoms and molecules that the light has passed through. Each chemical absorbs a different pattern of wavelengths, and so produces a different pattern of dark lines. It's the equivalent of a fingerprint, and allows astronomers to determine the chemical composition of a celestial object, no matter how far away that object happens to be. But collecting enough light from a planet is fiendishly difficult because the planet only reflects starlight, and its parent star is 1 billion times brighter. The analogy that often gets used is that it's like trying to detect a firefly next to an industrial searchlight. The firefly and the searchlight are about 5 meters away from each other, but are located in Los Angeles while you're standing in New York City. That's the analogy, although it's actually much worse than that if you go through numbers. What this means, in practice, is that some means of suppressing the star's light will be needed by the telescope in order for the planet to be seen. And in the Habitable Worlds Observatory, a device called a coronagraph will be used to physically block the light from the central star. That's why scientists call it game changer. One day, circa 1950, the physicist Enrico Fermi was talking with fellow scientists about flying saucers and whether it might be possible, in theory, for an advanced alien species to cross the vast expanses of the galaxy by traveling faster than the speed of light. Suddenly, Fermi erupted, "But where is everybody?" Thus was born the Fermi paradox. The universe is big and old, and it is highly plausible that alien civilizations have evolved, based purely on statistical probabilities. Fermi posed his question in an era of technological revolutions, including computers and rocketry. It seemed possible humans would master space travel and explore the cosmos. So why is there no compelling scientific evidence that extraterrestrials have visited Earth? Perhaps the simplest explanation for the Fermi paradox is that there's no paradox at all. They're here, among us. The idea that mysterious things seen in the sky are alien spaceships has proved remarkably resilient. It has had some ups and downs and is now in an up phase. We have 3 key witnesses who reported highly publicized encounters with unknown objects in military training airspace. They are Ryan Graves and David Fravor, two former U.S. Navy aviators, and David Grush, a decorated U.S. military combat veteran and Pentagon intelligence officer. Not only that, 2024 has barely begun, and already there have been two viral news stories featuring tall aliens. The fact that two similar stories went viral in the first half of January highlights the increased public interest in aliens and paranormal phenomena, likely ignited by Congress taking the time to hear UFO testimony. All of these make many alien and UFO hunters believe that this year is going to be the year when aliens will finally make contact with mankind. But does it hold true? Or is it just a myth? All this and more will be discussed in today's episode. First, you have to know that as of now, the U.S. has spent nearly a century inquiring into the unknown. But how to keep track of it all? Here's a timeline of the U.S. government's ongoing fascination with UFOs. Over the course of 2 decades, from 1947 to 1969, the U.S. Air Force cataloged 12,618 sightings of UFOs as part of what is now known as Project Blue Book. These include lights, objects, and unexplained radar readings reported by military and civilian pilots, weather observers, astronomers, and other sources. The project came to an end in 1969 after a study by the University of Colorado, led by Edward U. Condon, concluded there was no evidence that UFOs came from other worlds, and that most sightings could be explained by natural phenomena, or even hoaxes. But the Condon report didn't put an end to interest in UFOs. So-called UFO-logists spent the next few decades filing open records requests with federal agencies to uncover what was known about the sightings. In 1995, businessman Robert Bigelow convened a small group in Las Vegas to discuss the possibility of alien life. He called the group the National Institute for Discovery Science. Participants included 2 former astronauts, Ed Mitchell and Harrison Schmitt, and 1 sitting U.S. Senator, Harry Reid, Democrat of Nevada. "A lot of people said it would ruin my career," Reid later said. That didn't quite happen. Reid would eventually become a key figure in driving the U.S. government's investigation of UFOs. In November 2004, 2 Navy pilots on a training mission were ordered to intercept a mysterious craft. They saw and captured on video an unusual oval-shaped craft, about 40 feet long, hovering over the Pacific Ocean about 100 miles off San Diego. It streaked away before the pilots could get near. One of the pilots, CMDR David Fravor, said at the time that he had no idea what he saw. It had no plumes, wings, or rotors and outran our F-18S. In 2007, with backing from Reid, now the U.S. Senate's majority leader, the Pentagon launched the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program to investigate the latest round of sightings. The agency said in briefing papers that what was considered science fiction is now science fact. The program was run by a military intelligence official, Luis Elizondo, and worked hand-in-hand with an aerospace research company run by Bigelow. Next, in a series of incidents during this time, Navy pilots reported and made video recordings of a series of encounters with unidentified craft near Florida and Virginia that could reach high altitudes and hypersonic speeds. One pilot reported a near collision in 2014. Another later told 60 Minutes that the craft were hard to explain. You have rotation, you have high altitudes. You have propulsion, right? I don't know what it is, frankly. These incidents and investigations mostly went unreported to the broader public until December 2017, when the New York Times reported the existence of the Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. Although Pentagon officials said the program had ended in 2012, Elizondo told the paper he continued its work informally with cooperation from the Navy and CIA until his resignation in the fall of 2017. That sparked a new wave of interest in UFOs among the public, the media, and even scientists. In July 2020, Ravi Kopparapu and Jacob Hawk Misra, a NASA scientist and astrobiologist, respectively, wrote in Scientific American that it was time to revisit the conclusions of the Condon Report. They wrote, "Perhaps some, or even most, UAP events are simply classified military aircraft, or strange weather formations, or other misidentified mundane phenomena. However, there are still a number of truly puzzling cases that might be worth investigating." In August 2020, the Pentagon announced the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force to improve its understanding of and gain insight into the nature and origins of the unidentified objects. In April 2021, the Navy confirmed video of unidentified objects buzzing U.S. warships near California. The incident would be added to the list of sightings under investigation. In June, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence released its preliminary assessment of UFO sightings from 2004 to 2021. The report suggested that the UFOs, now known as UAPs, could fall into 5 likely categories: airborne clutter, natural atmospheric phenomena, public and private aerospace developmental programs, foreign adversary systems, and a catch-all other bin. In April 2022, the Pentagon announced the formation of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office to investigate objects that might pose a threat to national security. The following June, NASA announced it was setting up an independent study program to cover the issue from a scientific perspective. "We will be identifying what data, from civilians, government, nonprofits, companies, exists, what else we should try to collect, and how to best analyze it," said David Spergel, the study team leader. And 2022 also brought another acronym change. Unidentified aerial phenomena are now officially called Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena. Whatever is happening up, it still hasn't entirely been explained. The Director of National Intelligence released a follow-up report in June 2023, identifying an additional 510 sightings, of which 171 remained unexplained. In those cases, unidentified craft often appear to have demonstrated unusual flight characteristics or performance capabilities, the report said. Most explosively, a former intelligence official named David Grush came forward in June with a whistleblower report alleging the U.S. government was in possession of intact and partially intact vehicles from UFO crash sites. The craft, he said, were of non-human origin. But he also said he had never personally seen the objects, inviting skepticism from outside experts. As Boston University's Joshua Semeter, a professor of electrical and computer engineering and a member of the NASA team examining these reports, said, "In the long history of claims of extraterrestrial visitors, it is this level of specificity that always seems to be missing. The evidence may be wanting, but the questions, and the sightings, and the investigations continue. Now the public's eyes are on 2 infamous locations where they believe we will have close encounters with extraterrestrials. One is Alaska, another is Area 51. Alaska, as you know, is known for its beautiful, breathtaking, serene, natural life and frigid outskirts. But since the dawn of time, there have been stories of paranormal activity ranging from abnormal lights and UFOs, UAPs, that continue today. Residents have reported otherworldly sightings in every corner from southern Juneau to the edge of the Arctic Circle with intensified frequency. UFO encounters have been historically linked to areas of high military activity, and Alaska has 9 major bases. Most people are familiar with the Bermuda Triangle, which is 500,000 square miles of open water in the Atlantic Ocean, creating a triangle between Miami, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda. Although the Bermuda Triangle is more widely known around the world, there has been evidence of the Alaska Triangle, which is more mysterious and has more cases of vanishings and crashes. The Alaska Triangle is located in a vast, remote wilderness area twice the size of Texas. This area is hundreds of times more deadly and is located between Utqiagvik, Anchorage, and Juneau. In the last 30 years, 16,000 people have disappeared without a trace, which is 2 to 3 times the amount of the Bermuda Triangle. That's why the Alaska Triangle is well known as one of the most mysterious and dangerous places on Earth. Ships have gone missing, planes down, and many people have vanished with no remains found or any good reason. The greatest risk in the Alaska Triangle is in the air, with over 2,000 planes crashed or vanished in the last 20 years. The case that baffles investigators to this day is the disappearance of a military transport plane called the Douglas C-54, known as the Missing Douglas, which vanished in 1950. On January 26, 1950, the Missing Douglas took off from the Elmendorf Air Base in the middle of the Alaska Triangle with 44 passengers on board. There were 36 passengers and 8 crew members carrying cargo, and the C-54 is one of the most important planes in the Air Force. During this time in history, it was a year after NATO was formed and the start of the Cold War. The C-54 was headed east 240 miles to a mandatory point. The plane made the radio call on time, and 2 hours into the flight, it vanished without a trace in the Alaska Triangle. There was no distress call or any indication that there was an emergency. After the plane did not arrive at its destination, it was declared missing, and an enormous search effort went into action, making it a top priority. 7,000 ground troops and 85 aircraft were deployed to help in the search of the enormous area of 300,000 square miles. No one could determine why and how the Missing Douglas disappeared. Thus, the case of the Missing Douglas aircraft remains open and unsolved after 70 years. In October 1972, a plane carrying the leader of the House of Representatives, Boggs, mysteriously vanished on the southern edge of the triangle. With 16,000 people and many planes missing, it remains one of the most mystifying mysteries on the planet. Was it a portal? Wormhole? Is paranormal activity happening in the Alaska Triangle? Was the C-54 abducted by a UFO? Frankly, we can't rule out any of these possibilities despite their wildness. In fact, an organization made up of civilian volunteers studies reported UFO sightings and has made the claims based on old eyewitness reports. According to its members, there may be alien bases off the coast of Alaska. Researchers and enthusiasts believe that the deep water off the coast of the state conceals the sites. It comes after they took a dive into the eyewitness reports from crew members of a ship in 1945. The alleged sightings of an alien craft from almost 80 years ago were never made public at the time. Unusual sightings in the area lead the network's members to believe that UFOs move over water and therefore likely have bases under the water. According to the researchers, the crew members on the U.S. Army transporter ship saw a UFO between 150 and 200 feet emerge from the water while sailing past Island Adak. It is claimed that the UFO was unchanged by the wind or sail while it turned in its position. It then allegedly circled the ship a number of times before taking off. However, the reports of the sightings have not been found, and investigators have had to work without them. Enthusiasts believe that UFOs would be used to transport extraterrestrial life to other alien sites hiding in the waters. UFO researcher Johnny Enoch claims that sightings of UFOs rising from the water are due to an underwater network. He added, "Some have said the UFOs are using wormholes as a superhighway to connect their places in the universe." Some ufologists have theorized that other sites on Earth act as bases for alien life, including a mountain in Seoul, South Korea, which is allegedly hiding a UFO, according to Dr. Stephen Greer. In an episode of the series The Alaska Triangle, Enoch showed satellite images from underwater in an attempt to prove his belief in an underwater network. The images reportedly showed one of these alien bases in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of California. Meanwhile, another researcher featured in the program showed markings from the seabed that she claimed could have been roadways for aliens. The U.S. Sun previously reported on the 3-hour closure of an airport last weekend following an alleged UFO sighting. India's Air Force scrambled jets in response to a UFO that was seen hovering over Imphal's Bir Tikendrajit International Airport. According to police, the object was visible with bare eyes before it mysteriously vanished. Sadly, no evidence of a UFO was found following its disappearance. Next, let's come into the Area 51, located at Groom Lake in the middle of the barren desert of southern Nevada. Area 51 is a U.S. Air Force installation that has become infamous for a speculated connection with UFOs. Conspiracy theories surrounding the base suggest that it is used for the testing of alien technology recovered from supposed crash sites, like the famous one in Roswell, New Mexico. This has been fueled by the fact that the base was a secret for many years and is still inaccessible to the general public. As a result, this innocuous-looking military installation became forever associated with aliens in 1989, after a man claiming to have worked there, Robert Lazar, gave an interview with a Las Vegas news station. Lazar claimed that Area 51 housed and studied alien spacecraft and that his job was to recreate the technology for military use. However, Lazar's credentials were soon discredited. According to school records, Lazar never went to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology or California Institute of Technology, as he claimed. At the time, though, engineers at Area 51 were studying and recreating advanced aircraft. Just aircraft acquired from other countries, not from outer space. Nevertheless, with all of the high-tech flights out of Area 51, including more than 2,150 takeoffs by the A-12, reports of unidentifiable flying objects skyrocketed in the area. As journalist Annie Jacobson wrote in her 2011 book on Area 51, the aircraft's titanium body, moving as fast as a bullet, would reflect the sun's rays in a way that could make anyone think UFO. After all, Area 51 is still a pillar of U.S. alien mythology. A 2019 interview with Lazar on a popular podcast inspired a Storm Area 51 event, in which about 6,000 people showed up in the desert to look for evidence of aliens. It ultimately morphed into a festival celebrating all things alien. Even today, Area 51 draws believers and skeptics who frequent the small but thriving trail of alien-themed museums, restaurants, motels, parades, and festivals, all in hopes of discovering that the truth really is out there. While the search for traces of aliens on Earth is stuck, scientists searching a sea of stars for the sounds or sights of extraterrestrial intelligence. Because space is inconveniently enormous and traversing it so intensely time-consuming, it's exceedingly more likely that humanity's first brush with extraterrestrials will come in the form of eavesdropping on radio transmissions they've sent, or seeing a sign of technological civilization with a telescope, then recovering a pancaked little green wayfarer from a crashed capsule. So that's where scientists are focusing their work, listening and watching the stars above. This endeavor is exhaustive and exhausting, and the multitude of false positives can make it feel Sisyphean. But the prospect of success makes it worthwhile. A confirmed extraterrestrial signal detection would be a moment that divides history into before we knew there was somebody out there and after, says Seth Shostak, a senior astronomer at the SETI Institute. Discovering the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence would also instantaneously teach us something profound about the sustainability of life across the universe. As Ravi Kumar Koparapu, a planetary habitability researcher at NASA, said, "If we detect a civilization, that means civilizations can exist for a reasonable amount of time and overcome their issues and problems. that means there's great hope for us. This is not simply a matter of pointing technological ears and eyes at the night sky and hearing the whispers or music of a distant intelligence. The cosmos is a noisy place, brimming with energetic bursts, including the hubbub from Earth itself, that drown out and occasionally mimic potential alien transmissions. It makes possible signs of extraterrestrial intelligence tricky to spot and harder to confirm. That prompts the question, one day we may get a message from, or see the signs of, intelligent alien life. So, how would we know it's real? Regardless of the answer, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence is actually matter. It is something any astronomer or astrophysicist can do if they have access to the right kind of observatories. The best-known place that engages in it is the SETI Institute, a privately funded nonprofit research organization in Silicon Valley. Inaugurated in 1984, its funders and specific functions have shifted over time, but it has always been interested in looking out for signs of extraterrestrial intelligence. Other SETI research groups at other institutions and universities around the world share that same elemental goal, and if you ask any of their members to explain their motivations, a common refrain is that the scientific revelations of discovering extraterrestrial would be unparalleled. If they were to discover that there is life out there, intelligent life that has forged a civilization, it would first mean that biology is not a fluke. Instead, it is something that can take root on many worlds, something that does not merely arise but repeatedly produces thinking, technological, curious creatures, those that may wish to share their knowledge of the universe and their way of traversing or surviving it with others. And if this civilization existed on a world very different from Earth, it would demonstrate that the largely unlivable cosmos is populated by myriad different isles of habitability. But SETI research, as told, is grueling work. No matter how scientists do it, it takes time, effort, and heapings of healthy skepticism. Those looking for the tangible gratification of a classic UFO are almost certainly going to be very disappointed. Of course, the US military is hiding things, says David Spergel, an astrophysicist at Princeton. But that doesn't mean it's hiding aliens. The way Spergel sees things, an alien intelligence visiting Earth either wants to be seen, in which case it would be rather flamboyant about it, showing itself to governments and citizens alike, or it doesn't, in which case it will remain inscrutable to everyone, even spies. They would not attach blinking lights to their interplanetary spacecraft, just as Ukraine's drones do not announce their existence to Russian forces with flashing underside lights. To Spergel, the most interesting part of the search for alien intelligence is as philosophical as it is scientific. Channeling the late Carl Sagan, he says the most interesting property of the universe by a wide margin is that somehow it has evolved a capacity to know itself, to ask questions about itself. In other words, elsewhere in vast space, billions of years of unconscious physics and chemistry created biology, and another few billion years have resulted in at least one species like us that wonders aloud how everything came to be, effectively giving the cosmos self-awareness. Wouldn't it be nice to know that we aren't the only ones capable of that? Everyone needs some alone time, but nobody likes to be truly, permanently alone. SETI scientists are simply applying that notion on a species-wide scale. We could potentially join other intelligent species on a quest for self-understanding. They might not know the answers to the big questions, the why are we here category of queries, any more than we do, but we can join them in figuring it out. Alaska, the vast and enigmatic frontier of the United States, is a land shrouded in mystery, intrigue, and untamed wilderness. From its rugged mountains to its icy glaciers, Alaska holds secrets that have captivated explorers, scientists, and adventurers for centuries. The state's vast expanses of uninhabited wilderness and dark, star-filled skies provide the perfect backdrop for sightings of strange lights and unidentified flying objects. While many of these sightings can be attributed to natural phenomena or human activity, others defy explanation, leading some to believe that Alaska may be a hot spot for extraterrestrial visitation. In a shocking revelation, a former U.S. official claimed deep underground the Alaskan wilderness may lie a ginormous black pyramid, which is concealed by a top-secret government facility.
United States Army military specialist. After I got out of the military, moved up here. I've lived here since that time, over 35 years. Alaskan Black Pyramid.
But does it hold true? Why is the government trying to keep it wraps? Join us as we delve into the anomalous structure in Alaska and the secrets it hides. Covered in impenetrable forests and lined with craggy coastlines, Alaska has achieved almost a mythic status as the last frontier, a land of hardy explorers and off-the-grid adventurers, raw wilderness and crevasse-cut glaciers. From its rugged mountains to its icy glaciers, Alaska holds secrets that have captivated explorers, scientists, and adventurers for centuries. One of the enduring mysteries of Alaska lies in its remote and inaccessible regions, where ancient cultures once thrived and disappeared without a trace. Archaeological sites such as the 6,000-year-old Walrus Island petroglyphs and the enigmatic stone formations of the Serpent Mound continue to baffle researchers, offering tantalizing glimpses into the lives of Alaska's earliest inhabitants. The wilderness of Alaska also harbors tales of strange creatures and unexplained phenomena. The legend of the Alaska Triangle, a region roughly bounded by the cities of Anchorage, Juneau, and Barrow, parallels the Bermuda Triangle with its tales of vanished ships, aircraft, and people. Some attribute these disappearances to natural causes such as harsh weather and treacherous terrain, while others speculate about more otherworldly explanations. Alaska's vast landscapes are also home to countless unsolved mysteries. The disappearance of aviator Amelia Earhart during her ill-fated attempt to circumnavigate the globe in 1937 has fueled speculation that she may have crashed somewhere in Alaska's remote wilderness. Despite extensive search efforts, her fate remains unknown, leaving behind a haunting mystery that continues to capture the public's imagination. The Klondike Gold Rush of the late 19th century brought thousands of prospectors to Alaska's rugged interior in search of fortune, but many never returned. Tales of lost mines, buried treasure, and ghost towns abound in the region, inspiring treasure hunters and adventurers to this day. In addition to its terrestrial mysteries, Alaska's waters hold their own secrets. The waters off the coast are home to numerous shipwrecks, some of which remain undiscovered to this day. These wrecks serve as time capsules, preserving the stories of their crews and passengers for future generations to uncover. But perhaps the greatest mystery of Alaska lies in its wilderness itself, where towering mountains, vast forests, and icy glaciers conceal secrets known only to nature. From the eerie glow of the northern lights to the haunting calls of wild wolves echoing through the night, Alaska's untamed beauty continues to inspire wonder and curiosity, reminding us that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved. Among the myriad tales of strange happenings in the last frontier, one story stands out as particularly intriguing: the mysterious Dark Pyramid. Nestled amidst the rugged and icy wilderness of Alaska, the pyramid has made it a mysterious marvel that many people believe is linked to extraterrestrial beings. The first to speak about the possibility of a pyramid in the last frontier was researcher Linda Moulton Howe, an esteemed award-winning reporter who has dedicated her career to alternative news information and uncovering suppressed knowledge for the public. Her brainchild, earthfiles.com, is a global scientific report database. Alaska is roughly 2.5 times the size of Texas, This massive state has, in some variation, every type of climate on the planet, from beaches to deserts to the Arctic, rainforest jungles, concrete jungles, and so forth. While all the surveying of this state had been finished after World War II, the vast majority of this land is federal, or just totally uninhabitable under their current climate conditions. The government presence overall in the state is pretty overwhelming, with an Air Force joint base nearly the size of Anchorage right outside of the city itself, the FEMA camp up near Fairbanks, the history of the HARP and HIPAAS facilities, and the lore of what these facilities' experiments could have done to the radically changing climate or even augmenting or altering the aurora borealis itself. So, not only could Alaska easily house secret facilities in otherwise uninhabitable government federal land, but in terms of theory, it would almost seem silly for the government to not utilize these tactical advantages. The first clear question is surely, why can't people see this from the sky? This is where things start to get even more outlandish because the pyramid is supposedly located underground. Furthermore, it's supposed to be 4 times the size of Giza. Although a radical theory to some scientists, the ability for an earthquake to subsequently collapse the pyramid in a sort of catacomb underneath the Earth's surface would be theoretically possibility if one took into account Charles Hapgood's Earth crust displacement theory. Yet even this is a wild and unlikely truth. Rather, what the lore seems to behold, quite literally, is that this pyramid is thousands of years old and simply was not built by humans. Some reports even say that there are 2 smaller pyramids behind the Dark Pyramid, similarly to Egypt, but this does not appear to be a recurring theme in the reporting. Some theories about how the pyramid was discovered claim that its acknowledgement had to do with the initial sale of the state from Russia to America. However, as reported by Linda Howe from an anonymous retired Navy captain, it was found through its massive electromagnetic signal output, which coincides with all the other Dark Pyramid claims, and the long-time claims from alternative researchers about what most call pyramid power. Quoting Howe's source, the retired Navy captain, the distant early warning line or DEW line system that we built in the early 1950s took some 8,000 to 10,000 scientists, engineers, and construction workers into the wilderness that had once seen only the occasional hunter, trapper, gold miner, or native Alaskan village. But in the planning of the White Alice and Dew line systems, there was one additional interest in the location and construction of the sites picked for a wax facility or DW line antenna, and that interest was electromagnetic interference, or EMI for short. Anyone who has tried to listen to his or her AM car radio when you drive by a high-voltage power line knows what electromagnetic interference is, although maybe by a different name we call radio static. EMI from the high-voltage power lines interferes with radio reception and makes it almost impossible to hear or understand what is being received. This is no different with a complex, long-ranged, and at the time sophisticated, over-the-horizon communication system, like White Alice that we were putting together up in the Alaska area. In fact, due to the nature of how the White Alice system operates, using backscattered signals caused by atmospheric turbulence, it is even more sensitive to EMI because the atmosphere has propagation issues. There are sunspot effects from the sun, there are solar flares that produce the northern lights, that selecting the proper location for the antennas would be critical. Is it so surprising to think that in planning for the installation of the White Alice system in the mid to late 1950s, and taking and recording EMI levels at proposed White Alice sites, that someone might have detected an unknown source of extremely high EMI activity, and yet there would be nothing seen that is causing the problem? Assume that you are part of a scientific team tasked with finding the unknown source of the extremely large EMI signature using a variety of highly technical measurement surveys to try to locate that signal and finally determine that nothing was there. It is easy, therefore, to think that once the location of the EMI's source was located, and with the Cold War tension that existed between the US and the Soviet Union, and that a remote location, the Alaskan wilderness, was identified as the location of a large unknown source of EMI that, due to its remote nature in Alaska, it would have seemed possible for a team of maybe Soviet military engineers to be in that country undetected and maybe buried underground with some type of EMI generator that could disrupt the White Alice and radar due line communications. Instead, when they went there and they started going underground, they discovered a large stone pyramid, perhaps 4 times the cubic volume of Cheops in Egypt. However accurate, this seems to be the tallest standing theory. The dew line was a system of radar stations in the Aleutian Islands of Alaska, the Arctic of Canada, Greenland, etc., and was set up in order to detect Cold War bombing. The White Alice communication systems were constructed exclusively in Alaska during the same period, featuring tropospheric scatter links and line-of-sight microwave radio links, with nearly 40 WACS sites in the 49th state over the years. However, both of these programs have since been discontinued. In terms of the geological study involving the Alaskan pyramid, it was by no means linear. In 1992, the Chinese government was sanctioned by the United Nations to perform underground nuclear testing. Their global neighbors, including the US, were not very keen on the idea, but a team of geologists proposed a possible benefit by using the vibrations of the blasting to get an official and detailed map of the Earth's crust. In the official report, it is documented that located within the coordinates that Howe has released, which supposedly are the coordinates of where the pyramid is located, between Denali and Nome, there is a very clearly defined pyramid-shaped structure that matches the size of the dark pyramid lore, and that it was located underground. Meanwhile, in 1989, counterintelligence warrant officer Douglas Muchler was stationed per request in Fort Richardson, Alaska. Interested in some prospecting, Muchler acquired a detailed mapping of the state that covered an entire bedroom wall. On this map, he said that there was a white rectangle about the size of a postcard with text that read something along the lines of "land not surveyed as of whenever date it was." Muchler knew this was fishy, and he did not forget it, but his curiosity dropped until 1992, when new light was shed on subject. One night on Fort Richardson military base, while watching the Channel 13 Evening News, outside of Anchorage, with 40 or so other standard military personnel, Doug Muchler watched a breaking news story about the discovery of an underground pyramid in Alaska. The repost was accompanied by simplistic computer-generated animation, all due to the geological findings done into the Earth's crust previously mentioned. The next day, he called his father, who Muchler said was an avid news watcher, only to find that his father had heard nothing of the sort. Upon looking into it further, even going to the Channel 13 news station, and asking for a copy, or at least some information on the story, no one had any idea what he was talking about. Muchler was even told by the general manager of the station that no such story was ever run or had ever existed. When leaving the station, he was approached by one of the employed film editors who claimed that he could not help Muchler in his pursuit, but he could verify that the story absolutely did air on the station the previous night. Muchler didn't forget this, and years later, even had the gall to dig through government files in hopes to shed light on the situation, only to be confronted by 2 unidentified officials who took the files and reminded him that he did not have the clearance. 20 years later, Doug Muchler went to Linda Moulton Howe and earthfiles.com with his claim. Another brief anonymous source of Howe's has since come out on record as well, claiming that their father was an electrical engineer, part of the Cold War comm systems that were set up in Alaska in the 50s. Another second-hand eyewitness account was also passed down from father to son, this son's name being Bruce L. Pearson. Speaking on the matter, Pearson said that his father was told that the Alaska site was every bit as hush-hush as the Manhattan Project. The pilot also told him that it was not a nuclear device. It was not made by man. Nobody is supposed to know this place even exists. Pearson's father moved to a village in Alaska to teach upon retiring as a decorated member of the U.S. military in the mid-1970s. One day in the village, Pearson's father ran into two men around his age who were also military. The three men hit it off quite well, and by the time the other two had to depart, it seems that they weren't quite ready to say goodbye. In a gesture of classic Alaskan friendliness, the two pilots offered to bring Pearson's father along with them on their chopper flight a few hours away. They suggested that the time would pass quicker if Pearson's father was there with them to keep the great and reminiscent military conversation going. Pearson's father accepted and departed with them on the helicopter, and it was only until after the departure that he was made more aware of what exactly he was embarking on. Not long after being warned of the possibility of all of the electronic systems in the helicopter suddenly going haywire, they did indeed do so, including radars blinking and alarms sounding, and this was supposedly due to the electromagnetic properties of the pyramid. However, thankfully, this did not interfere with their flight capabilities of the vehicle. Eventually, the men made it to a very peculiarly placed landing pad in the middle of the wilderness, where Pearson's father noted multiple mining shafts that he says he could easily identify because of their presence throughout his childhood community. Upon landing, men in suits with no advertised affiliation came, grabbed the unidentifiable cargo without word, and a jeep came up behind them and filled them up, all without even turning off the chopper itself. Adding to the mystique of the Alaska Black Pyramid are the various legends and myths that surround it. Local indigenous tribes have passed down tales of the pyramid for generations, often imbuing it with supernatural significance. Some believe that the structure holds mystical powers or serves as a portal to other dimensions. Others warn of ancient curses that befall those who dare to disturb its slumber. Despite numerous expeditions and investigations, the secrets of the Alaska Black Pyramid remain elusive. Archaeologists have attempted to study the site, but harsh weather conditions and logistical challenges have hampered their efforts. Conspiracy theorists and amateur sleuths scour satellite imagery and analyze obscure texts in search of clues that might unlock the pyramid's mysteries. The allure of the Alaska Black Pyramid extends beyond its enigmatic origins. As the Alaska Black Pyramid continues to defy explanation, it serves as a poignant reminder of the vastness of our planet and the enduring mysteries that lie within its depths. Whether the product of ancient civilizations, extraterrestrial intervention, or natural forces beyond our comprehension, the enigma of the Alaska Black Pyramid continues to captivate the imagination and inspire wonder in all who behold it. Beside the mysterious regarding the Dark Pyramid, Alaska, known for its rugged terrain, vast wilderness, and harsh climate, has long been a hotbed of mysterious phenomena and unexplained encounters, what many believe to be extraterrestrial beings. In the frigid winter of 2002, a group of hunters set out into the remote wilderness of Alaska's interior, seeking game in the pristine, snow-covered landscape. As night descended and temperatures plummeted, the group made camp in a secluded clearing surrounded by towering evergreen trees. It was during the darkest hours of the night that the hunters' peaceful solitude was shattered by a sudden blinding light that illuminated the entire forest with an otherworldly brilliance. Startled and disoriented, the hunters emerged from their tents to investigate the source of the inexplicable phenomenon. What they encountered defied all rational explanation. Hovering above the tree line was a massive metallic craft unlike anything they had ever seen. Its sleek, silver exterior seemed to shimmer in the moonlight, and the strange symbols adorned its surface. The craft emitted a low, humming sound that reverberated through the forest, sending chills down the spines of the onlookers. As the hunters watched in awe and disbelief, a hatch on the underside of the craft opened, revealing a blinding portal of light. Out from the depths of the mysterious vessel emerged figures unlike any terrestrial beings, lithe and humanoid in form, with elongated limbs and large almond-shaped eyes that seemed to pierce through the darkness. Frozen in fear and wonder, the hunters could only watch as the otherworldly visitors approached with an air of serene curiosity. There was no communication in the traditional sense, but the hunters sensed a profound connection with these enigmatic beings, a silent exchange of thoughts and emotions that transcended language barriers. For what felt like an eternity, the hunters and the extraterrestrial visitors stood in silent communion, each party attempting to comprehend the incomprehensible nature of their encounter. And then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the beings retreated back into their craft, which ascended into the night sky with a deafening roar, leaving the hunters alone in the darkness once more. In the days and weeks that followed, the hunters grappled with the profound implications of their experience. Some dismissed it as a trick of the mind, a hallucination brought on by the harsh conditions of the Alaskan wilderness. Others believed it to be a divine revelation, a glimpse into the mysteries of the cosmos. But for those who witnessed the event firsthand, there was no denying the reality of what they had encountered, the inexplicable presence of beings from beyond the stars, visiting Earth in a display of unfathomable wonder. To this day, the story of Alaska's mysterious encounter with extraterrestrial beings remains shrouded in mystery and speculation. Skeptics may scoff at the notion of alien visitation, but for those who were there that fateful night, the truth is as clear as the stars that shine above the vast, untamed wilderness of the last frontier. Beyond Alaska, the skies above Canada were fertile ground for what could be UFOs, with at least 17 reports filed in 2023, according to media reports. Friday. The sightings came from all over Canada, from credible sources such as pilots and crews from various airline companies including WestJet, Air France, and British Airways. At least 17 reports of unexplained sightings were confirmed in 2023 by CTV News and are contained in an online aviation incident database maintained by the federal government's Transport Canada. Last February, 2 airlines reported strange sightings of lights in the sky, much higher than usual flight paths on the same night over the province of Quebec. As a crew member aboard a cargo flight from Chicago to Luxembourg told air traffic controllers in Canada, according to audio obtained by CTV, "It looks like it's more than one and sort of circling. It's a bit weird." But a second source reported the sighting too. Like an air traffic controller told the Luxembourg-bound cargo flight on February 12th, "Just to let you know there was a flight from the south. They saw the same thing roughly a half an hour ago. So, I guess we're not just dreaming then, huh?" the aviator responded. "No, you're not the first on tonight," the air traffic controller said. Canadian skies seem to be a favorite haunt of unexplained objects that could be UFOs. Since the year 2000, Transport Canada has received more than 315,000 reports of civil aviation incidents. In the United States, UFOs, now often referred to as unidentified anomalous phenomena or UAP, have been looked into during congressional hearings. But don't you know that in fact, the reports regarding UFO have been surfacing for decades? The modern era of UFO sightings and investigations started after World War II with a sudden surge of unexplained reports. According to the latest update, the U.S. government now is receiving dozens of reports of unidentified anomalous phenomena each month, with the potential for hundreds, if not thousands, more reports expected in the near future. Most explosively, a former intelligence official named David Grush came forward in June with a whistleblower report alleging the U.S. government was in possession of intact and partially intact vehicles from UFO crash sites. The craft, he said, were of non-human origin, but he also said he had never personally seen the objects, inviting skepticism from outside experts. Regardless, what's interesting, it seems aliens like to party in Las Vegas too. Data shared by the National UFO Reporting Center shows the U.S. hotspot for UFOs is Lincoln County, Nevada. Lincoln County saw the most UFO sightings across all U.S. counties between 2000 and 2023 at 820.9 per 100,000 residents, the nonprofit reported. The county is notably home to the top-secret military base known as Area 51, which has long been associated with unknown phenomena. East Coast hotspots included upstate New York's Hamilton County and Dare County, North Carolina. The center, which operates off user-submitted reports of unidentified aerial phenomena, says nearly 113,000 alien sightings have been submitted between 2000 and 2023. The states with the most sightings in 2023 were California, Florida, Texas, Washington, and New York. Overall, the sightings reported in 2023 were down 19% from 2022. And according to the center's webmaster Christian Stepien, the two most intriguing videos it received in 2023, a spooky sighting in Texas and a daring duel in Utah. The Texas incident occurred on January 4th over the small town of Forney at about 9:20 p.m. and featured a glowing object resembling a computer cursor in the sky. "That is not an airplane!" The witness, an unnamed Texan, is heard exclaiming on the 13-second video. The center purposefully withholds names of witnesses to protect their identities. Meanwhile, the Utah sighting took place in May 2021 near Arches National Park and resembled a scene out of Top Gun with two spherical metal objects soaring by on the same flight path. There's certainly a sign that there's something anomalous going on, and it would be nice if the government paid more attention and did some serious research, Stepien said of the two peculiar clips, adding, "You can tell by the way that one guy, the Texan, is talking that he's pretty blown away by what he's looking at. A V-shaped craft." Last fall, the Pentagon launched a new portal where current and former service members, government employees, and contractors can report UFO sightings. The county is notably home to the top-secret military base known as Area 51, which has long been associated with unknown phenomena. The online form will help the Department of Defense's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office compile accounts of unidentified aerial phenomena sightings to include in its congressionally mandated historical record report, which is due to Congress by June 2024. The Pentagon office in charge of investigating UFO reports most recently provided its most detailed explanation for what it said were false or misconstrued claims of alien visitations over the decades. The first volume of a historical record report released by the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or ARO, in response to a congressional mandate, did include a fresh disclosure. During the 2010s, U.S. government officials considered a proposed program code-named Kona Blue that would have looked into the possibility that extraterrestrial technology could be reverse-engineered. But the Department of Homeland Security rejected the idea because it lacked merit, the report said. According to the report, it is critical to note that no extraterrestrial craft or bodies were ever collected. This material was only assumed to exist by Kona Blue advocates and its anticipated contract performers. The same assumptions were made by outside investigators who delved into UAP reports as part of an earlier Pentagon-funded program. One of the investigators involved in that program, which was known as the Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Application Program, or the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, made clear that he'd continue trying to keep the alien angle in the public eye. Luis Elizondo, who helped spark renewed interest in UFO reports in 2017, said in a posting to X, "Today the Pentagon and its current UAP investigative program, ARO, issued a public report that is intentionally dishonest, inaccurate, and dangerously misleading. Myself and others who are aware of the truth are going to keep working to help Congress in their efforts to achieve disclosure." But Mick West, a retired software engineer who specializes in analyzing UAP reports, said the newly released report shows how a belief in alien phenomena can be self-reinforcing. West wrote on X that a belief in the supernatural is what led to the current UFO flap that ARO is trying to pour cold water on. After all, no matter the results of the latest UFO investigations, the debate is sure to rage for years to come. After all, a lot of people feel strongly that the truth is out there. If you too just want to believe, you can see for yourself where extraterrestrials may have touched down on Earth at these destinations around the world. That's all the information that we have for you today. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the bell so you never miss out on future episodes. And be sure to also tell us what you think about today's content. Everyone's support motivates us to continue delivering quality content and to always improve. As always, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.